Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Serious Writer Club. It is August 14th, and we're excited. We got a lot going on. The publishing world's kind of coming back stronger. I mean, I don't know, it's stronger than ever, but like it's been a kind of a summer of doldrums this last month, and so I'm going to a conference next week and having some meetings in Nashville with some publishing houses and the editors. So I'm looking forward to it, which hopefully will turn into projects. We just signed on 18 books with a publishing house last week. So like things are still happening. It has been the busiest. I would say this has been the busiest year of contracts for publishing that I've had yet, which I didn't expect this year to be. But post COVID, you just have never known. But it's been a good year. Lots of different opportunities. The opportunities are different than I think pre-COVID, but they're industry's good. And I don't know if you saw this, but like I think HarperCollins had like record profits. Did you see that news?
Yeah.
So this past year. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing for this industry. So yeah, we can't complain about that. We should be excited about that. And so
Yeah.
um I think they have like 21%. I'll find out. I'll find out. It
Oh
was
yeah,
big.
I don't remember off the top of my head, but
It
it
was
was
it
good to
was
see.
like, wow, that's exciting. Let me find it.
Um,
It's in
one
my
thing,
email. I'll find it.
all right, one thing, I don't know if we talked about this on here. I sent it to my clients, but um Workman was purchased and like acquired. And so Algonquin young readers got pushed over into Little Brown. So that was a change in the picture book space. So I don't know about you, but I had a couple submissions out with Algonquin, and they just kind of like fizzled down because anything
Yep.
that they hadn't taken yet is just gone. So that was a little sad to see, but
Oh, that's the
apparently
most fun when a publishing house gets sold. I don't know that
no,
people actually know this, but if they get sold and you have a submission in, it's immediately pretty much dead.
it's a no. Not all the editors moved over either, but apparently this was part of a 3-year thing that they knew was going to be happening, and so it's just kind of taken into effect. So it wasn't like a major surprise, but it was a surprise to me. So I was sad to hear that, and sad for I hope everybody gets a job that didn't get to be pushed over. So that was
Right.
one thing. But for Publishing 101 today, what I thought I'd share is a little bit of in the children's space, horror, which is, I'm now obsessed with middle grade horror and have been for about ever since I read the Clackety, so at least a year, I would say. And another agent sent out a newsletter. One of my clients was like, "Hey, did you see this?" And it was talking about picture book horror, which I hadn't really thought about going down that thing. So something interesting is that this agent had sold a book, and the acquiring editor actually deemed it picture book horror, which was not something that I think that a lot of us think about in terms of picture books. But it can still be light, which it needs to be, but it just needs to have that little bit of like a spooky little edge. And so if you're ever thinking like, oh, I've got this story, as long as it's not super scary, it might be appropriate, and it might be the time to start submitting that. I like to see when we start to see things that are kind of like, oh, this is a new thing. This may become a trend. It may not become a trend, but if it does, you'll be at the beginning of it. So those are the kinds of things we want to share with you. And of course, we'll keep updating as we go, especially because I have a client who has a spooky little horror picture book. So she was really excited. It'll be going on submission very soon. So I'll be able to tell you the feedback, not the exact feedback, but as I'm hearing from editors, if this is going to be a new thing, I will let you guys know. So, and then I've got an article too to share. I'm going to throw it in the chat.
Yeah, go for it. I mean, spooky picture books. I don't see a lot of them, but I really like Creepy Carrots. So and
Creepy carrots.
that would be considered a spooky kind of horror picture book. Or do I have it on my shelf? No, it's in the other room. Creepy Carrots is one I really like. That I would think would be considered like children's horror. It's not. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
We would not define it as horror as adults, but like for children, it's
No,
scary. So it's creepy and yeah,
what I
I
like
like.
about middle grade horror is that it's about the extent of the horror genre that I can handle, because it doesn't get too graphic with details and things, which is nice. Okay, so I just threw a link into the chat, and I'll put it in the description box as well for the replay. And it just it's a very short article, but it kind of gives some tips if you're writing for kids, things to stay away from. One thing was like, don't focus on death. There's other things that kids that are kind of scary to kids that you can kind of focus on. And like one of them is like being lost or hiding from monsters, those kinds of things, which I thought was super interesting. And then always, it has some tips in here too about making sure to watch the language that you're using for when you're writing for kids, which if you're already writing for kids, then you're really aware already of the different word choices for the different age levels that you can be using. So they had a couple of links in there. So I highly suggest checking out this article. Staying away from violence was another one. And they also gave some forbidden topics. And a couple of those were like sex, drugs, and alcohol, and abuse. And so they're kind of putting some limits then when you're writing for kids. Like those are things that they're going through. And I think sometimes writers want to address those things, but sometimes we need to remember that reading is an escape. And I'm sure there are books that are appropriate for kids who are dealing with that. But if you're writing kind of these fun books, those may not be topics that need to go in them, depending on the age level.
Oh, I'm muted. Sorry. Yeah, Robin saying in the chat, Bunnicula is a one she likes, and yeah, that's I would think that'd be another horror one. Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of like this innocent, kind of spooky, creepy thing. So yeah.
One of the real quick, one of the books we listened to in the car was called The Bellwoods Game, which would again be another middle grade horror. So if you kind of like, it's not even super creepy, but it is a little bit. If you're like, oh, I'm not a horror fan, I think you might really like this type of book because it's not horror. It's a little bit more suspense, even though it is a little bit of middle grade horror. I just want everyone to kind of open their horizons because The Clackety is probably in my top 3 favorite books of all time. And it is middle grade horror. And I love that book so much. So
you love to talk about.
I love that book. You need to read it, Kyle. Once you read it, you're going to be like, Bethany was so right, because this book.
I haven't found it in a store yet. I haven't ordered yet. I mean to order it, but I keep forgetting. So
yeah, book 3 I think is releasing. I know book 2 is out, and then book 2, book 3 really coming out pretty quick, and I'm excited.
I'll be honest. I have a hard time paying for books because I have so many books at my house right now. I mean, I've sold over like 500 books. So I literally have a copy of every book on a shelf. So I have tons of books.
You need to go to the library. I'm telling you, you'll love it.
Guys, like these 4 shelves and this complete full, those are all your clients' books. And I'm like, it's great, but it's a lot. And like, I'm like, I want to go get more books. Plus we have all the books we have for like homeschooling. We have a lot of books. So I have a library at my house, basically.
You do. Oh, Joanna said that she read The Clackety because we suggested it and she liked it. And I'm so glad. It's so good. I use it with one of my clients who's working through edits on a YA and really trying to figure out the ticking clock and the quest and kind of things. And there's so many times I use The Clackety as a reference for writers to say, hey, look, go back and look in the formula. When did she say this? When did this come into play? Because the formula, the way she wrote is just absolutely wonderful. So I'll stop gushing about this book. It is one of my favorites.
The Clackety. Do you want me to go order it?
Yes,
I'll order it while we're live here, so that way
it's fantastic.
that way I can you can stop telling me that.
Stop telling you to go buy it. It's super, super good.
Now there's 3 books. Have you read all 3?
No, I'm very excited to read the second one, which has been out for a while. It's same kind of thing. I have a hard time reading for fun when I have client stuff that I need to read through. Like I have a really hard time separating.
Once I became an agent, like the number of books I read just for pure enjoyment has diminished significantly because like
it's so hard. Yeah, and you feel guilty.
Yeah. It's like, am I cheating on my clients?
I know. I feel like if I'm reading this, I could be reading something else. But so I find I'll binge on books and maybe like read 3 in a weekend or something. But then I feel so much better. I feel like I'm better when I'm helping my clients because I just like inhaled, really great stuff that then I can bring back if I'm helping with edits or anything like that. But yeah, it's hard. I'm wondering, for those of you who are with us, do you find it hard to read books when you're in the middle of writing one? Because I found that when I was writing too. Like I didn't want to read anything else. I just needed to get the thoughts out of my head. So I'm curious if you're with us or if you're watching the replay, let us know in the comments. is it hard to read? And well, how do you get over that if it is hard to read? Like, do you just say, this is my reading day? Like, do you have to give yourself permission? And okay, so Cindy said yes. Joanna said no, she reads when she writes, which is great. Yeah, it's tough. Oh, Don has reading times, which I love that. I need a reading time. I feel guilty for having reading time. That's the problem. I need to get over that.
I would say your husband probably says you have reading times.
He's
I bet you have that weighted blanket at your house, that heavy, that like plug-in. Nothing has a plug-in blanket because her house is cold, and like she just sits there. I had to go over there. I was freezing the entire time, but I got sick at her house. So
yeah, it was
I
not
said,
hot.
why am I freezing at her house? So they kept giving me this plug-in blanket, but she's like, that's my reading blanket. I just sit here and read, and I just sit and I'm warm with my puppy
I
and my
love it.
dog. So
He would say I have too much computer time. I think that's where he would go. He would say,
yeah, yeah. I did find the information from a Publishers Weekly that put out, and I got an email from them about HarperCollins. It was great. They are up significantly this year, and it's something that we need to make authors aware of, because I've heard this mentioned the last 2 months. It probably in almost every call I've had with a publisher. Spotify is changing the game right
oh,
now.
let's talk about that.
Spotify is changing the game. So the reason that HarperCollins is having a banner year, which is good, is because they're up 28% on audiobook sales, because Spotify is going gangbusters and people are listening and buying and reading on Spotify. And so you want your books on Spotify. But I also talked to an audiobook publisher the other day and said, like, our number one right now is Spotify. Like, we are having great success with Spotify. It's kind of changing everything for us. So it's like Spotify has millions and millions, like tens of millions. I don't know if they got 100 million followers now across the globe, but it's a massive audience. And they went into books and audiobooks earlier this year, and the audiobooks have just gone bonkers on there because people already are paying for that subscription.
Mm-hmm.
I pay for Audible when I can just listen on Spotify. So if you are doing your own stuff, if you are self-published and you have books out and you're not on Spotify, you need to be on Spotify like yesterday. You need to get your books on Spotify. It's important. You can even do like giveaway codes, I believe, and stuff on Spotify. Although what I was told by one of the audiobook publishers last week was their goal is that Spotify is all about bulk. So if you do giveaways and stuff, it actually hurts you not getting bulk. So you need to get as many people as you can to Spotify, because they're listening and you're getting paid by the number of listens. So, but you can do really well there. And some publishing houses are doing really well because they just have a massive amount of content. They're getting it on Spotify. And so it's making waves right now. So Spotify is the reason why so far, and HarperCollins Audible eclipsed their ebooks, eclipsed their books this past year.
It's amazing.
Which that's been like the thing, right? It's been, will audiobooks ever get more and bigger and farther ahead than the than just the printed books? And like, it looks like, Bethany, that we are there.
It's interesting because we
We are
listened
there.
to 3 audiobooks on our road trip, maybe 4, and then
Yeah,
driving
because you
down
can't
again.
read while you're driving, but you can listen
Everybody
to
you're
books.
driving.
Yeah, and it's great. And so digital sales, you like, I'll just kind of, this is what happened. So HarperCollins grew 28% in the last quarter. I mean, it's not even last year,
That's a
it's last
lot.
quarter. That's last 3 months. That's insane
It's insane.
for any business to have that kind of growth. Digital sales went up 12%. And the rest was all due to audio. And so, and then their backlist even went up because their backlist is now on Spotify, and people, when they go get this backlist, they listen to the book and then they want to buy other books and read. And so like having those audio up can actually sell older books, which is huge. And so I think it's epic what's happening. And I know that's kind of like terrifying for people, but when when audiobooks sales exceeded ebook sales for the first time, that is a huge thing. And like, yeah, publishers are going nuts about it right now. So but being that came out a week ago, and then that came out like maybe 10 days ago, In the last week, I have had 2 calls with 2 audiobook companies who are looking to acquire more rights for audiobooks because everybody wants to get in where their money's being made. And so we are looking to sell about 16 books to one of them. And the other guy's like, what do you got? What do you got rights to that's available? So,
Yeah.
and I'm like, well, let's talk about it. So we're about to do a deal with 16 books, looks like with one publisher. So, and maybe we might do 4 with one and 12 with the other, but it's kind of exciting. So, know that Spotify is changing everything as well as AI is. I mean, like these are the things that we got to be aware of, like in this industry, which is exciting. But one of the things that Bethany and I will talk about offline is, as an agent, we want to seek out authors with books that have sold well, that don't have audio, or have the audio rights back, where we can then try to sell those to audiobook publishers, because audio is really, I think, a big part of the future. And so that's something that we will talk about later. So.
Yes, I know sub rights is a really big deal, and it's a good thing to have. Like as an agent, it's good to have like your debut and your new authors, and then also have some sub right deals. It's also really important for you to go back into your contracts and see if you have your rights back to the audio. Sometimes there's reversion rights that can be included in your contract if you had someone negotiate that in there, or if you negotiated that in there. It's something that we talk about a lot with contracts. Something I'm putting into a deal memo I'm working on right now for a client is asking for reversion rights after 18 months. So you want to keep as many rights as possible.
Now, what people don't understand, though, is in most contracts, they have the rights to sell your rights to another company, and you're bound based on the terms of your contract to the new contract. So if I say I contract with you, Bethany, and I buy your audio rights, and then I sell your rights to Blackstone, and I sell those rights for 7 years, but I have a 5-year contract with you, and it takes me a year to sell those rights, then you may get your book rights back after 5 years, but you won't get your audio rights for another 3 years. They're gone. They're still under that contract, and you are bound by that new contract. So part of it is understanding how all this works in the contract. But I've had people tell me, well, I can get my rights back. And they're like, you can, to your printed works only. Everything else has been sold. You can't get your foreign rights back. If you sell your foreign rights, they're gone for the term of the contract with the foreign rights company. So like all of this is a tangled web that one of the reasons we tell people to get agents and to get help is because ultimately you need to know these things and you be able to figure those things out. But if you do have your audio rights, and now I know what a lot of people are going to think they're watching, and they're like, a lot of children's book authors. What about children's books? Children's books is not the foreground of where you make a lot of money in
picture books, for sure.
Audio. Yeah. You like novels, nonfiction. If you've got your audio rights, it could be time to do something with it, but you're going to need to show them that you've sold the physical copies of the book, like the ebooks. You're going to need to show sales. They want to see a certain number of sales to think that the audiobooks will also carry sales.
Yeah. I'm going to put in the chat the Bellwoods game because it was wonderful, and I'm still thinking about it, which is middle grade horror.
Right.
And it was cool today. I'm going to say, I think that fall is coming to Virginia early. This is just what I'm thinking. Because if we were in Florida, it would be in the 90s to 100 and hot and gross. And it is really nice outside today, which I love. So I'm already getting ready for like the spooky season. I think that's why I've got the horror genre on my brain. Plus, I'm excited to see that there's like potentially a trend coming in picture books in the horror space. So that'll be great.
And I am about to, this week, I got to do a bunch of critiques for Killer Nashville, because I'm one of the critique people for Killer Nashville. So I'm looking forward to reading some good thriller and spy books. I don't know what I've got so far. I've got a couple of them coming through, and I just got one as we're sitting here, because next week I'll be at a 4-day conference starting on Thursday in Nashville. Wednesday I am meeting with HarperCollins. I'm going to fly in Wednesday afternoon, and then I'm going to go directly to HarperCollins with one of my clients.
Can you sit forward?
Oh yeah, so can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to HarperCollins and Nashville's office, and I'm going to talk with the editor who we generally work with an editor there for a lot of work for hire. So I'll be talking about work for hire projects and hopefully future opportunities for my author and others that I'll be with. But then I'm also going to meet with some acquisitions and we're going to make
Yay.
some pitches. So I'm very excited about that. And then on Thursday, I'm meeting with B&H Publishing. And then I'm waiting to hear from Hachette. Waiting. It's like crickets. But my conference is in Franklin, which is where Hachette is. So I should be able to meet with Hachette, but I'm going to have trouble
You
meeting
need
with Hachette.
to be there in person and say, here's everything I've been waiting on, and just have
I might just, if they ignore me, I'm just going to show up and like, hey, it's me, right? that guy. I've been here before. But I definitely want to meet with them because they are very overwhelmed after firing like 5 editors and going down to 1. I know she's overwhelmed, but we are doing a lot of projects and we need some information, but I also want to talk about the future stuff. So, so that's my goal, is to have those conversations, and then I'll head to the conference where I'll meet some other editors, which will be great, and do some networking, which is always good. So I'm looking forward to this. I've not been to this conference, and so I've not been to a conference in a while, other than
It's been a long time for you.
Well, I guess I just did Detroit. I did Detroit, but that's like a one day. It's different.
Well, we're doing our September event, so if you haven't signed up for that yet, there's still time. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the being able to really go in depth with people. I think that's my favorite part of this conference. But I'll be in Florida for the Florida Christian Writers Conference in October. And then you and I have to get back with you on the dates because of Justin's military. But
I have some news for that too.
I was going to say, we are going to
New York City.
We're going to New York City to meet with editors.
With Dell.
Oh, is he coming?
Yeah, Dell's coming.
Yay. Yeah. Okay, great. We got to go to the TikTok diner and get cheesecake.
Yep. He's already told me I'll come if we can go to TikTok diner. So 3 of us at our agency are going to go to New York and go meet with editors. And the nice thing about 3 of us, I think the target is we'll probably have 1 meeting with 1 editor altogether, just because we've been building a relationship. Bethany's been building a relationship with this editor.
He's
in. Yeah, he's excited. And then we're going to just get a bunch of meetings, and then we're just going to basically probably eat cheesecake and talk about the day's worth of meetings all over town. So that's our goal. So I'm excited about what that will mean, because we'll come back on this call with like
lots of info.
We'll have some things that publishers are looking for.
Yep.
And so, especially in the general market. So most of those will be general market houses that we meet with. So that'll be nice for those of you who work in the general market. But I had this conversation yesterday with one of my authors, and I was just like, the author was frustrated about a contract. And I said, here's why. I said, Bethany works in the general market mainly.
I do.
They reply to emails. they get back to you within a timely manner. Like, in the religious market, it is not that way. I'm still working on a contract that was offered in January, that we got terms in June. Took 6 months to get terms. I replied immediately that day to the terms and said, yeah, what about this? And then last Friday, I got a response to that email about the terms saying, yeah, we can do this. Do you take it? I responded immediately, said, yes, send me the contract. Now it's almost a week later, still no contract. I don't know when it'll come, but we are like 8 months in to getting a offer and just waiting to get it fleshed out on paper. Like, I'm desperately trying to get this contract for this author. And I keep telling her, I know you feel like this is me. It is not me. So I keep forwarding emails just so she knows, like, listen, I'm actually working on this pretty heavily. Like, I have texted this person. I have called this person. I don't know why that is the contract. So, but it just doesn't happen that way in the general market. Like, general market, we'll send an email and say, hey, would you like to have lunch, coffee, or have us stop by? And we'll probably hear back within a week. Yay or nay, but that's not the normal thing. Like, I'm multiple emails in to my request to come to Nashville and have meetings. I have 2 set up out of the 3 that I really want to have. And I don't know if I'll ever hear. So kind of the way it works, but
yeah, we're about 1.5 years into getting this contract that's already been negotiated. I just don't have the final copy of the contract yet. So I guess I was saying before we got on the call, I hope it's in my inbox when we get off of here, because I'll be so excited to have that. And then another one we're negotiating too. But it's hard because I've got one under contract with a Penguin imprint for a picture book that I'm thrilled about, but it doesn't release for a couple of years. And we're okay with that. But it's just, I'm like, oh, I just want that deal announcement to get made and that contract to get like officially signed. So it's with the contracts team, and she said it could take time because it just gets into the queue, going through the lawyers and all that. So just waiting on that. But yeah, so lots of things still kind of percolating. It just takes so long. Like I don't think that, I will say that before I became an agent, I really thought I understood all the things that agents did. And now it's like most of the stuff, like the authors never see it. And you don't really talk about it on the agenting side. It's just part of it. But there's so many hours that go into every piece of like the submission and the putting the package together and then the follow-up and being editorial. Like there's just so much that goes into this. So it takes a really long time.
Yeah. I mean, and like, I think people don't realize that a lot of what we do, they have to do. If you don't have an agent, you have to do a lot of what we do on your own. And that's what makes it difficult, because you have to do the networking. You have to learn about contracts. You have to negotiate. You have to do all the waiting. You have to get to the events. You got to get to the conferences. Like you really have to take all that on. Just like when you self-publish well, you become a publisher. So you have to invest the same way, the same amount of money, the same amount of time, energy of making a book great and work and sell. You have to do the same thing to try to get your book out there to the publishers, to be seen, to be purchased and get a contract. So like that's part of why we share a lot of this, is that the things that we do, we're basically saying this is what you need to do to the level of what you can. And the general market's a lot harder because you got to have a gatekeeper, you have to have an agent. There's no real question in that market. So the people that work in that market, they get it. They know they need an agent to be a gatekeeper. In the religious market, they don't necessarily have to have one, but then you still have to do all those things as if, you had one. So it's tough. And it's some of those things. It's just a high learning curve, which thankfully I learned this years ago, and it's been great, and it's been fun. And now having that established relationships, I can kind of pop into these places and get these meetings. And so, I'm looking forward to it. So we will have some really good information in a couple weeks when I get back. Not next Wednesday, because I'll be actually in the plane in the air when you guys are meeting next week. But I will be coming back with some current religious market updates, and then from my meetings. But then I'll be at a general market conference, so I'll have a lot of general market thriller, suspense, mystery information for those that write that as I come back from that. So if you are writing in either of those areas, then I think that next meeting at the end of the month will be a fun meeting to be on, because I'll be excited. It's always fun to go to a conference and come back with new stuff. And then it won't be that long, and we'll see each other in North Carolina, Bethany and I.
Yeah.
So it'll be a great time to be there and working on stuff. So, yeah. And then I've got big news coming out soon. I think I'll wait till September to bring it out, but I'll have
To share.
I'll have the date for our next Italy tour,
which
will be revealed then. But it's going to be a fall trip this time. So, because I want to go to Italy in the fall with all these writers. So, yeah. So it'll be fun. So that's coming up. So if you're wanting to go to Italy, start thinking about it now. So it'll be great. But that's becoming one of my very favorite places in the world. And so, especially for writers, I think it's just so inspirational. Yeah. So any other thoughts that you have to add for kind of like the state of publishing right now, as we give like a publishing 101? What do you think writers could be doing at the moment, knowing that we're kind of on the verge of getting back into the office with these publishing houses? And I think that might be part of the reason I'm struggling next week to get that third meeting, is maybe they're on vacation because it's the first week of school.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people, but I'm hoping they're back. But what do you think is the goal right now for authors as we move into the fall season?
I think that publishing really picks up right after Labor Day, or at least that's what I've seen the last couple years. So just knowing that editors are going to be back, and I think it's going to be another flurry, kind of like we have after the holiday seasons. So just be ready for that. But then this is such a smaller season that's open compared to like when you come back after the holidays, like the Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. You've got a really long stretch of time before summer where publishing just sort of stays super busy. And I think we've got really September, October, and a little bit of November, so like 2.5 months. So I would say maybe pull some of the projects that you've been working on, or if you've got projects where you're like, okay, I'm starting to see some trends here, start pitching those. I would honestly maybe just shell out the $25 for 1 month of Publishers Marketplace and start looking at some of the deal announcements that are being made now, because those are the books that are going to be on the shelves in a year or two or three. And so you can kind of, instead of looking at what's just released as a trend, looking at what's actually being acquired and seeing if any of your stuff could work for that. Because you can even use that exact, you can pitch to an editor at a house and say, I've seen a couple of projects come out on this from these two publishers. I think that there's space for more of them. And that might be able to give you a leg up as well. So I think this is a good time before it starts to get super busy. Although I do have a couple agent friends who are starting to get a lot of responses as editors are cleaning out their inboxes right now. But there's a couple houses that are still slow, like Simon and Schuster. I have not heard from them in a while, and they were the ones who were really kind of cracking down and saying that they wanted to have that like 3-week turnaround or 2-week response time or whatever. If you remember was it last summer where they had that big meeting? But that happened for a little bit. Like now it's just crickets from over there. So I think board books are really big right now too. I'm still seeing that
They are.
in children's. So,
Yeah, they're again, previous sales are going to matter significantly when it comes to children's right now in the market, and having something that's really current in the marketplace is demanding, which is going to be big box retailer trade books. They're looking for stuff that will go in Walmart, will go in Myers, will go in Costco,
Target.
will be carried at Target, and goes right up against. I mean, I noticed that Sam's. I mean, we talked about it a few weeks ago. Sam's and Costco were basically redoing their view of books being carried in those big box sellers. And so I was in Sam's Club last week looking at the books, and they significantly reduced the book section. I would say at least 30-40%. And the books that are carried are usually by a celebrity, or they're classics, or they're seasonal. Outside of that, there wasn't much there anymore. So what does that mean? Write seasonal books that are gonna have it. There's a season that they're going to come out yearly, pitch those because they're always in demand. Come up with a really new, fun idea that no one's done, because you're competing against, you're competing against the biggest books that have come out, like what's the Little Blue Tractor book? I think is it called Little Blue Tractor? Yeah, it's a popular children's book. I mean, that's the competition. Is these books that continue to sell. Hungry Caterpillar still on the shelves at these places. Like, yeah, it's your competition. And so board books are selling, but a lot of those board books are the classics that are doing well. So you have to find your space, and that's a harder thing to do. And so having audience, having an idea is a good opportunity. So, but if you're not walking around the stores, you gotta be. Like, I would say one thing I think people could do as writers in the next week or two before you hit like that post Labor Day where you really want to try to get your stuff seen by editors and agents is just go to Barnes and Noble. Also go to Walmart, go to Meijer, go to the big box retailers in your store, go to Books A Million, walk around the sections that you write and see what's being sold. And especially go try to look at the publishing date of the books. Open up the front cover, look at when the book was published, see what's coming out, look at the new releases that they've got out, and see, does my stuff fit here? Because if the answer is, I don't think my stuff fits with this stuff, then it doesn't fit with this stuff. It doesn't. And so it's changing rapidly. And so that's one of the things you can be aware of. And so what's the trend? Yeah, the trends kind of change depending on what it is. But I think when we look at what Disney's doing, if you're not paying attention to Disney's announcements and the D23 and all the shows that are coming back, and all the themes that are with those, that's going to drive a large part of media. Mermaids are coming back. When they release Little Mermaid again, mermaids did make a comeback. I don't know how long that trend is going to last. I think that trend may largely be over. I think you're going to see them getting published, but I think the acquisitions have happened on the mermaid books.
Well, so I have one going out on sub, and one of the editors is like, we actually have a series coming out that was too similar. So I think we're going to see another little bit of a tail of this. Yeah. I'm hoping.
Yeah. But I know a lot of those books were requested right as it come out. So when movies are coming out, like Lilo and Stitch are coming out, if you got stuff like that, that's time to pitch it. Snow White's about to come out. If you've got similar stories, or if you've got rewritten classics, Snow White kind of story, then that'd be the time to pitch something like that, like before it comes out, because that tail after a movie is not a long tail. It's usually, I think, 6 months after a movie. They need to be, when things are being announced is when you need to begin. I think you need to begin pitching. It's like, hey, by the way, Snow White's coming out. It's releasing this day. I'd love to see you take a look at this book. We've got about a year and a half to get this in the cycle. So those are some books you got to get there. Yeah, I mean, Robin's right on it. 2026. It's the anniversary of the U.S. I mean, really, in the next 6 months, to a year, is time to pitch books for the centennial. But really, I don't think a year. I think you've got another 6 months of real good to 9 months of really trying to sell books that hit the, what do they call the 150th? It's not the
I don't know.
it's not the bicentennial, it's the cinquentennial or something. Is that what it's called?
It's something, but then I always think of Hunger Games.
Yeah. I bet Robin knows. So,
Um,
but there's, I mean, whatever that is, but writing kids books about it, celebrating it, hitting that, finding a creative way to just pitch it. And those are some yeah,
I
I
can't
was
say
close.
it.
Sesquicentennial. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Sesquicentennial.
I know when I say that, it's a good idea. Robin's like, oh, I'll have that too. And yeah, she will. And I've actually, I got an idea for Robin for 6 books for that. So yeah, I'll talk with you about it. So,
Well,
but those are things that you have to think about. I mean, Robin is an author who's always watching the markets. And so you've got to watch the markets. You've got to watch what's on Netflix. You got to watch what's on Amazon Prime. Like those, I know, like authors, like, well, they're movies, they're not books, but movies right now are driving what comes out in books. And they are like, that's the name of the game, is like, send me something like this movie, because all these editors, a lot of them are now much younger because they've had a lot of turnover at these places since COVID, and they watch movies and they watch YouTube videos and they watch TikTok. And so they're usually saying, send me something like Skibbity Toilet from Ohio. So, and like people are like, what is Skibbity Toilet? So
if you have
if
middle schoolers, you know.
if if you got middle schoolers, and Skibbity Toilet book would sell if you could pitch it right now to the
Cannot.
right editor. And like everybody's like, Skibbity Toilet. I know everybody's like searching Skibbity Toilet. They don't even have a spell Skibbity Toilet.
Oh man.
Yeah. So
Instagram.
those, yeah, but those are things that you have to be aware of. And like, so right now, the best thing to do is work on figuring out what do you think's current and what's coming up. And that's the harder thing. Like, people say you can't predict the trends in the industry. I don't think that's true. I think that's an old adage before we had all this social media and media that we have. I think you can predict the trends. I knew before Little Mermaid came out that Little Mermaids were going to be a trend. They were, because little girls were going to fall in love with Little Mermaid. And the little girls that I know all love Little Mermaid. They all wear the updated shirt from the updated movie, not the old classic, because they didn't grow up with the classic. They grew up with the new one. And so mermaids trended. So those are some things you think of. Like right now, here's a trick. School starts next week, or some people started this week for school.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some, I think some schools started last week. I saw somebody
Yeah.
post last week. School season. So books for kids about going back to school or school, this is the time to pitch it. Like right now, if you've got books about going back to school or first day of school, it's time to pitch it right now. They won't come out for a year, but you're in the perfect time to get those kind of books out, and that window is probably gone in a month. And because they're not going to be looking for those types of books, they're going to move into the next things. And so be aware of that.
Little Brown is they send out a like kind of a wish list or things that they're full on all the time. So I can give you a couple things that it is kind of specific to them, but I'm guessing it's going to be specific to most of the editors over like, and again, this is children. So if you're not into children's, I'm sorry, I don't, this is the one I have pulled up in front of me. But some of the things she said that they're still looking for, and we say it every time, I'm going to say it again: humor, escapism, character-driven stories, and series, things that are super fun. That's just constantly at the top of the list. But another thing they're looking for is stories with boy characters, and that will appeal to boys, which is good. They're always looking for representation culturally and with disabilities. Environmental books are still a thing. And we just did a critique. I think Robin's was an environmental book. So something that they're looking for. The sad thing to me is that they kind of went a little bit in depth about how hard it is to continue to acquire text-only projects from picture book writers. And just because of the cost of having to do the text with the author and then find a separate illustrator. So in the section, in a different section on things they're not looking for, were text-based picture books that rely heavily on the art. So not that they're saying they're not going to take on text-only authors, but you need to really make sure that your words can carry so much of the story that it's not going to rely on the art to pull it through unless you're doing both. And so that was an interesting distinction in this year's newsletter versus last year's newsletter. So hopefully that's helpful to the picture book writers here, just to know that it can take longer.
That's not something they like hearing. I'm just going to tell you.
It's
a picture book writer.
Well, all of my clients are text only.
You're just frustrated every picture book author that will watch this video.
Here's what you need to know. If you're text only, you're just.
But that's the reality of where we're going in this industry.
In a competitive space. And it's all of my clients are text only. I don't have any author illustrators. So it's hard because they're competing against people who can do both, and they're competing against the text only authors who are not debut, who already have books out. So like a lot of those books are the ones they keep, putting more money into because their names are known. So it's just tough.
Yep. It's hard, but not impossible.
Not impossible.
But I think it's going to just get harder, not easier. So the key is figure this out. This is where platform comes in. The way you become the text only person that gets purchased is you have a following that's going to buy books, and then they're going to take that risk because you can sell books. So that's how it's how you navigate that.
Our Penguin author who's under contract right now, it's text only, but the words do carry it. I mean, the illustrations are going to be super fun. Like I'm excited to see them when they get to that point, but you can read that story and you can just see it in your own head. You're not relying on the illustrations to tell it, so it's going to make it even better because the writing is so good. Right. But yeah, and it's not horror, but it is like a little spooky evergreen story, which I'm very excited about. I think we're getting close to time. Any other thoughts or comments? I'm looking forward to hearing about your meetings.
I'm looking forward to having them.
Oh, the contests. I get that third one. Yeah, the contests are open. So emails have been sent out and it's on Facebook. So we've got 45 days of an early bird and then 30 days of regular. So we are in the early bird time. So you want to get your books in your writing in. So that is that.
Great. Well, I'll see you in 2 weeks and I'll have lots of information. So if you're a children's book author, mainly that's what I'm going to be talking to in Nashville when it comes to religious children's book author. And then if you are a novelist, which I'll be talking to editors who do other things besides mystery, thriller, suspense. But if you are writing any of those genres, then definitely you want to be here for that Wednesday at the end of the month when we'll have all that information for you. I'm very excited about sharing as much as we can with you and helping you in your journey. And it's a great time to submit things because we're going to be like right before Labor Day. So it's perfect. So
can you say that last part again?
We're going to be right before Labor Day. So it's going to be perfect. So it's a great time to be on the call and get submissions ready if you're writing in those genres. So that'd be great.
All right, y'all. Thanks for being with us.
Have a great week and we'll see you soon.
Bye.